Good pause YouTube. How's it going, everybody? Got for you guys today a really good close YouTube battle that I had against one of my followers and subscribers. And me and him actually had a battle a couple of weeks ago, or maybe like a month or two ago. I don't really know. But that also turned out to be a really good battle. I'll actually leave a link to that down in the description if you guys want to go check that one out. And before I get into talking about the team preview, we didn't exactly hit the like goal in the previous Wi-Fi battle, which, you know what, I'm not upset about. I'm perfectly fine with that. But for this one, guys, if we can get this video up to 350 likes, I will definitely make sure to upload another video for you guys tomorrow, and maybe even two if I can. So, look at that team preview. I'm using a really fun team that I got from my boy Jason Dang, although he had Blastoise over Starmie. I don't exactly have a properly EV'd Blastoise in game for Wi-Fi battling, so I kind of threw in a Starmie. And looking at my opponent's team, the biggest threat I saw going into this battle was going to be that Hydreigon, just because Hydreigon, being choice specs modest, does a number to my team, so I really have to watch out for that. Also, Darmanitan could be a big problem, so that's another thing I have to watch out for. So I'm going to be leading off with my Rotom, as he's going to be leading off with the Fortress. Right off the bat, I'm thinking, okay, he's going to switch out, right? There's no way he's going to stay in. No, he stays in. As I get off a solid amount of damage with the Volt Switch, I am going to go ahead and Volt Switch into my Starmie, expecting him to maybe want to go for a Layer Spikes or Stealth Rocks. As he does end up going for Stealth Rocks, I am perfectly fine with that. As this turn, I'm just going to stay in, and I feel that I'm honestly in a position where I can just safely go for a Hydro Pump. Even if he wants to bring in the Slowbro, I should be able to follow it up with an Earthquake and knock him out. But he makes a crazy, ballsy prediction second turn of the battle, and he brings in the Manectric, thinking that I would go for the Thunderbolt, predicting him to bring in the Slowbro, predicting me to go for the Hydro Pump on his Fortress. But that is not the case, as I Hydro Pump the incoming Manectric, it just dies. So he's going to bring in the Darmanitan. Obviously, I do not want to take a U-turn, so I switch directly into my Crobat. Thankfully for me, he does not end up going straight for the Flare Blades, because if he had done that, it possibly would have been a 2-hit KO on my Crobat, and that would have been really bad, as he does just end up U-turning on now into his Fortress, which I'm perfectly fine with, just because I do have Defog on this Crobat, and I believe I also have Taunt, so I can easily beat this Fortress one-on-one. I can outstall him of Gyro Balls, and I don't know if he does have the Volt Switch just yet, so I'm going to take this opportunity to go for the Defog, just scouting out to see what exactly he wanted to do, as he ends up going for the Gyro Ball. He's going to do a decent amount of damage to my Crobat, which honestly is not entirely too much. As this turn, I was really close to going for the Taunt, thinking that he would want to go for the Stealth Rocks again, but ultimately I decided just to go for the safe roost, because in the long run of the battle, being at a higher amount of HP would be a lot better for my Crobat than if he did go for the Volt Switch. As I went for the Taunt, he could get off a bit more damage, and I would be around 30-40% HP. So it turns out that he does have the Volt Switch, as he's going to end up Volt Switching on now into his Hydreigon. Now I do have a Snorlax, so I'm not entirely too worried about this Hydreigon, because I'm thinking that my Snorlax should be able to easily take any hit that this thing wants to go for, just because I am max special defense and max HP. So I switched directly into my Snorlax, hoping that this Draco Meteor would only do like maybe 30-35% amount of damage. Right? No, he goes for the Draco, and just look at how much damage this does. That's a solid 48% amount of damage to a max special defense, max HP Snorlax. You guys have no idea how scared I was when I saw how much damage that Draco Meteor did. Hydreigon, which I already knew was going to be a problem, became an even bigger problem. So I double out into my Heat, into my Rotom Heat. I don't really know why, as he switches into his Darmanitan. I'm going to predict him to go for the Rock Slide or the U-turn and switch directly into my Manchow, just because honestly I knew he wouldn't go for the Flare Blitz, just because, I mean, it's a Rotom Heat. There's no reason for him to go for the Flare Blitz, and I do bring my Manchow as he U-turns out into his own Manchow. I didn't stay in, fearing the fact that he could be Scarfed and win the speed tie, so I switched directly into my Crobat, as he makes an excellent play, predicts my switch out, goes for the U-turn, gets off a decent amount of damage, and again I do 4 times resist that, so there really wasn't too much damage he could have done to me, as he U-turns back out into the Hydreigon. Now this is a very bulky Crobat, so I'm thinking that I should be able to stay in and at full HP live a Draco Meteor, Then the following turn, go for another roost and eventually just keep lowering the special attack of this Hydreigon. So I stay in, go for the roost, knowing that I'm faster than him, as he does end up going for the Draco Meteor. Now, he ends up getting a crit, which at the time of the battle I thought actually really mattered, because I was very confident that I could live a hit, but then I ran a damage calc, and it turns out that he did have a chance to knock me out. So ultimately, the crit might have mattered, or it might have not. In the end, he got the crit, or he could have got a low damage roll and I could have lived, or he could have got a high damage roll and he would have knocked me out. So either way, odds were really not in my favor of me living that Draco Meteor. So he's able to knock me out. As I bring in my Mancha, I'm going to go straight for the U-turn, predicting him to bring in the Slowbro, but no, he switches directly into his Fortress. I forgot what this was called. As I go for the U-turn on out into my Rotom, I then end up going for the Overheat, thinking that he would stay in, predicting me to go for the Volt Switch, but he ends up switching directly into his Hydreigon, as I believe I do miss Overheat. Now, to be honest, the Overheat miss does not matter whatsoever, as I'm going to be able to get off a solid 10-15% amount of damage with the Volt Switch. I am then going to be able to bring in my Snorlax again, hoping that he would actually miss the Draco Meteor so I could go for the rest. And thankfully, he actually does miss the Draco Meteor, which is really good for me, because now I'm thinking, okay, I can go for the rest. But then I thought about it, I was like, wait, what if he switches down to Manchow, predicting me to rest? So I stay in, and I go for the Body Slam instead of going for the rest, because in my mind I was thinking, okay, I still have a good chance to paralyze this, right? So I can paralyze it, then go for rest. No, I don't get the paralysis. And as I said, I should have just honestly gone for the rest, because now I lose my Snorlax, which was kind of my only switch in to this Choice Specs Hydreigon, which can now come in and just annihilate something on my team every turn. So I bring in my Manchow, and I'm put in a position where I can either go for the high jump kick, go for the knockoff, or the U-turn, predicting the Slowbro. And ultimately, I decided to go for the high jump kick on the off chance that he would want to stay in, predicting me to actually go for the knockoff or the U-turn, predicting his Slowbro to come in. But he actually ends up bringing in his Fortress, which is perfectly fine by me, because I'm going to be able to get off a solid amount of damage on that. And then I switch out into my Sin Cara, thinking that he would bring in the Slowbro, predicting me to go for the high jump kick, but he actually stays in and goes for the Gyro Ball, I guess just wanting to fodder off the Fortress, as now I will be able to just safely go for a Hydro Pump, because much like earlier in the battle, even if he wants to bring in the Slowbro, I can then follow it up with a Thunderbolt and knock out Slowbro and not have to worry about it. So I finish out the Fortress, which is really great, as he ends up bringing in the Mancha. I'm really fearing the fact that he could be Scarfed. So I'm going to switch out into my Rotom Heat, expecting him to just want to go for a U-turn, and then I can go for the Volt Switch. And he goes for the knockoff, and he played this Manchow perfectly, because judging from that damage, he is definitely Choice Banded, as he's going to be able to easily 2KO me with the knockoff. But now I can get a free switch into my Crocodile, and I should be able to safely go for a knockoff of my own. I was actually very scared of the fact that he would want to bring in his Darmanitan, predicting my knockoff, but he actually ends up switching directly into his Hydreigon, which thankfully for me, this is going to be an easy 2KO, because this is a max attack Dread Plate Crocodile. So I'm going to be able to knock out the Hydreigon, which means the reign of this Hydreigon is finally over. Unfortunately, though, he still has Manchow and Darmanitan, which are very scary to my team. So he brings in the Manchow, and I leave in my Crocodile thinking that he would actually be able to knock me out, but he ends up getting a crit. Now, after running a damage calc, unless he was adamant, which even if he was adamant, the maximum damage he does is 105, then I would have been able to actually live the U-turn and still gone for the Earthquake this turn on the incoming Darmanitan or Slowbro, then followed it up with a knockoff. So that crit is actually going to end up playing a bit of a role later in the battle, because I would have been able to get off a good amount of damage on the Slowbro. So I bring on Manchow, I make a really risky plan, I go for the high jump kick, as he does actually end up leaving in Darmanitan, thinking that I would go for the U-turn. I knock that out as he brings in the Slowbro. I go for the high jump kick, just trying to get off as much damage as I can so I can safely bring in my Starmie and hopefully get off enough damage to where Thunderbolt will be able to knock him out. But seeing that he does not have leftovers, I knew that he was actually a Assault Vest, so I bring in my Starmie hoping that I could maybe get a crit so I could knock out this Slowbro. Unfortunately though, I do not, although Thunderbolt still does a respectable amount of damage. He is then going to go for the Scald, which thankfully for me, he does not burn me. And I'm honestly in a position where I can safely go for another Thunderbolt, even if he wants to bring in his Man-Child like he does here. As I stated earlier, he is indeed Choice Banded, so I will be able to follow it up with another Thunderbolt or Psyshock. And ultimately, I go for the Thunderbolt knowing that it would be enough to knock out the Man-Child, that, and on the off chance that for some reason he did want to bring in Slowbro, predicting me to go for the Psyshock, I can knock that out. So at this point, it all comes down to whether or not my Thunderbolt will be enough to knock out this Slowbro. So I go for the Thunderbolt, and he lives on like 4 or 5%, and that is going to be the very extremely narrow 1-0 victory in his favor. And this is where that U-turn crit might have mattered, because I could have got off damage on the Slowbro with the Earthquake and then knock off and possibly got rid of his Assault Vest, so my Starmie would have been able to win me the battle. But hey, in the end, it was still just a really fun, close, intense battle, and hopefully you guys did enjoy it. And as I said, guys, if we can get this video up to 350 likes, I would definitely make sure to upload another video for you guys tomorrow. So with that, if you missed any of my 2 previous uploads, they are playing on your screen right now. So later, everybody.